relationships are bad investments. Underneath my desire to find out how I was bringing out the worst in men was hatred, was fear. For those first 6 months, everything I learned about men, I used against them. I used it to be more effectively manipulative. I asked the men, 40 men there, nobody raised their hands. And this one man just shook his head. I'm like, what? He goes, no questions. So your favorite questions are no questions? And all the men were nodding. 95% of a woman being happy is up to her, maybe even more. Nothing a man can do will make us happy if we're too tired, if our feelings are hurt, if we haven't had enough alone time.
My voice in today's episode is powered by 11 Labs. You teach women to inspire men rather than demand from them. When does that work best and when does it go wrong?
Wow, good question. It only works when a man is, you could use the word attracted to, or more accurately cares about, which is affected by attraction. So just physical attraction doesn't cause men or women to care about what the other person needs, which means nothing will inspire it. It's a transaction. It's one's own self-interest. It's not anything close to partnership. And the good news is that the qualities in a woman that cause a man, if he's not too overcome by chemistry, if he can be present, that cause him to care and want to be a friend or a mentor or an extra brother or the person that he wants to be with and take care of for the rest of his life. Those qualities are they're and it's the best thing about partnership is that those qualities are good for both. So all of the elements of partnership, all the things that build partnership are always good for both people. It doesn't mean it'll always work out, but it means you'll figure out faster we're not a fit. We can't give each other what the other person needs, and what I need to give, you don't value. Oh, this isn't a good fit, but I know somebody. Which is when a man cares. He's like, I'm not for you, but I know someone who is. Really awesome. So, yeah, someone has to be available to be inspired. And chemistry, physical attraction is so loud. I would say when there's too much chemistry. Chemistry's great, especially when you know how to cause it and you're not effective at it. But when it's too loud, there's no space for inspiration. It's all instinct and inspiration to breathe life into, right? That's a spiritual quality.
Have you seen people use your ideas to stay in relationships they should have left?
Oh, wow. Yes. The compulsion to preserve is very strong. The idea of investment. I've invested so much. And since for many, many years, I listened to men more and taught women more. And so I'd hear a lot of women talk about how much time they'd invested. And for women, it's instinctually and factually, we have our fertile years are a fraction of a man's. And so our relationship to spending time with a man comes from like the idea I wasted so much time on that guy. And so one of the messages that I have is if you think you're investing, investing usually means you're giving up something now for an anticipated gain later. And relationships are bad investments. we need to be paying attention to are we getting what we need now? Are we giving what we need to give now? Is it working now? And now? And if not, what do we do? Right? And it doesn't mean like life is peachy keen, but are we on the same team even and especially when life is hard? Do we stay on the same team? If we don't do that, ay ay ay. And there are people who, yes, the answer is yes, absolutely. People have used what they learned from me to try to make something work that had no chance. For example, we do something called a B list. What qualities do you need the other person who's going to be that important to you to be and to generate being even when you don't inspire it? And there was a woman who, out of a list of like 14 qualities she needed the man in her life to be, he was one of them. And she wanted to know how to get back together with him. Like, wait a second, these are each stand alone deal breakers. You can't build on one out of 14. They're just never going to be what you need them to be. And the sad thing is, when someone isn't what we need them to be, they always feel like they can't win. And if there's a conflict over it, the person who has the need will be often made to feel like they're crazy to need that. They're wrong to need that. Ay, ay, ay. I had a program once for couples called the Extraordinary Relationship Intensive. And out of the like 8 couples that were in that intensive, at least 6 of them, the things that they struggled over and like really divisive over had been there from the very beginning. And that's when I gave up working with couples. Like, okay, I'm going to work with singles before they get into situations that are never going to turn out. And yeah, I like saving families, which often happens when people give up diminishing each other, but I don't try to preserve marriages.
So at what point does somebody, if they're following your, I guess, your advice and your teachings, at what point would they know, to cut bait and run versus to keep working on it?
I'm sorry to laugh. I am all for sorting. Um, I don't think I don't think we have a finding problem for people that we could partner and couple well with. We have a sorting problem. And I also think energy conservation is important. And so it ties back to, Tim, your first question. I encourage everybody to establish immediately, does this person care about what I need? How do they respond to me saying that I need or require something? Are they one of about the 20% of men who think if you won't die without it, you don't actually need it? And therefore, I should say it's important to me, or it's the only way I can be this quality I'm committed to being, or the only way I can do what I'm committed to doing. But we got to find out right away, does this person care about what we need, or are they looking for something else entirely? And how can we enhance each other's lives by being together? They're just looking at how can she or he enhance mine. And it's there from the very beginning. It can show up later after a lot of hurt and disrespect, but it's often there at the very beginning. If there's a lot of good years and then it shows up, then we go to work on restoration. How do you heal yourself and each other from those wounds and from that disrespect and dishonor and maybe betrayal? And if both people are, if both people will do that, are committed to doing that, will engage in that effectively, then anything is possible. But if only one person is reaching and the other person isn't reaching back, that would be cut bait. just, just cut your losses. There's nothing that can be done if they won't reach back. If when you say I'm sorry, they won't accept that. If when you apologize as an acknowledged wrongdoing, they won't accept that and consider forgiving you. If after you own all your part of how things went haywire, and they're like, good, I wondered when you were gonna see things my way. The end. If they reach back, well, can I apologize for something? now something can happen.
Beyond the successes, is there a part of your work's impact that worries you?
Yes. And only faith has had me be able to be with it. The first 6 months that I was studying men, I didn't know that underneath my desire to find out how I was bringing out the worst in men was hatred, was fear that was never acknowledged, was best defense is a good offense. That's what my stepdad used to say a lot. He was a hockey player. And so for those first 6 months, everything I learned about men, I used against them. I used it to be more effectively manipulative, and with disastrous results. And from having done that, I then knew the danger of what I was discovering becoming like cocktail party chatter, and women learning, just as men learning about women's instincts. They're men who teach and learn about that in order to use women's instincts against them. Women learning, for example, that men aren't looking for a woman who doesn't need them. They're looking for a woman whose game they can change.
With that global paradigm shift in mind, why do you think your ideas resonate so deeply?
I think because virtually every human, and there are exceptions, have had at least moments where they've experienced no separation from other people. You might call it oneness, or the Aspen Grove. We look like a lot of individuals, but underneath the surface, we're all connected. And one of the places we see that is even like in a movie theater. If in a movie, someone in the movie sincerely, truly, really says, I'm sorry to another character in the movie, and they mean it, right? They put the sorry in the sorry. Literally, people in the theater will experience being healed by that, just as someone would in real life. And so I think when people are at odds, when people are in an adversarial paradigm, when there's discord and conflict, I think most people are suffering a lot. Now, unfortunately, our response to not getting what we need, which I would call the anger spectrum, and I believe the emotion of anger is addictive, and that energy of anger and even rage or fury, even aggravation, that energy can have us feel what we mistake as power. When that frustration is about being powerless, having less power than we need to get what we need, then the anger feels better. I think powerlessness and despair and shame are the worst feelings a human being can experience, and we'll do anything to avoid them. So we'd rather be furious than powerless. We would rather be vengeful than despair. And so we still have two nervous systems. We have those instincts for preservation that we share with the most primitive creatures on the planet. And we also have a higher consciousness where we know something else is possible. The presence of love, the realness of love and generosity and kindness and compassion. My work appeals to that because that's what it's all about. And if people want to get on that train, this is where it is. If they want to just keep doing what everybody normally does, they don't like me in the first place. If you want to take responsibility for your part, you will love what I have to teach because I keep distinguishing what's your part and what's not your part. So quit beating yourself up about what is not your part. So near as I can tell, Tim, with the vitriol in the world now, that what's happening with the presence of what I teach and other aligned teachers, which is the only thing that we look for in me saying yes to an interview is their alignment. Neuroscientists say the brain learns by the perception of a difference. And I think as the adversarial expressions are getting louder and louder, it's actually allowing people to see that they are not that. When it was milder, they could go along with it. As it gets louder, they're like, no, I am not this. I need something different. And they go looking for it. It's an interesting way to transform a culture. I have a very long view of my work and my mission, like way past my lifetime. So I watch these cycles and rhythms, and many times since 1995, I've thought I saw the bottom of the barrel. Oh, this is the bottom of the barrel. Good. No place to go but up. Oh dear. I didn't know there was even further to go. And as many people know, until you hit the bottom of the barrel, you don't actually confront what needs to get done. So for more and more people, what's happening now is the new bottom of the barrel. And we have a lot of people who, back in 1995, it was invisible. Emasculating men was invisible, and women thought it was what they were supposed to do. Now, in the last, just even the last couple of years, women are going, wow, this really doesn't work. What's an alternative? That's encouraging.
What do you think made people go to that point where say, this isn't working? Like, what was the breaking point, or when did the tide turn, I guess?
It's hard to tell, Troy, because the internet, what people call social media, YouTube, which I used to think of as a teaching medium, so I loved being there. With shorts, it's getting trickier. If the clips and the shorts lead to somebody going to watch the whole interview, then yay. It's very difficult to tell what's real because of the amplification and distortion. And what there are people who are expressing to me shock at the state of relationships, the state of relating between men and women now, and as if it's a new thing, that it's gotten really, really bad. I don't see it being any worse than it was before. It's just the volume is turned up. And the same thing with what's happening on the planet. There's nothing new happening on the planet in human history. We're just so much more aware of it. We've always had. We've had genocide, for example, forever. Prejudice is built in to our DNA, our immune systems, distinguishing me and not me. So I think the whole thing's just going to blow up, as we've been afraid of since we're being in school in the 70s in the Cold War. We're I think with the amplification, and how quickly things happen, how hastily decisions are made, how much things are skewed. I still think heaven on earth is possible, but if there's an earth left, it could still happen. I'm not going to stop doing my part of that. But I also, and my people know this, I'm very aware of having energy to do my part. And so I don't engage in things that suck the life out of me. I don't cause myself to engage in things where I am powerless and then can just be disheartened and not do anything. If I can't make a meaningful difference to something, I don't pay attention to it. It's why I have people, it used to be my husband, he would, we call it news from the outer world. And when Greg passed and my 3 kids, they're adorable. At that time, they were all in their 20s. Now they're all in their 30s. They sat down to decide who was going to provide for mom all the things that dad had. And like, who was going to make sure she ate? My son stayed with me for about a month just to make sure that I ate. And who was going to provide news from the outside world? And my youngest daughter, who can't not pay attention to current events, she became responsible for news from the outside world. Now Dan does that. He brings me news from the outside world. But I have no embarrassment or shame or anything about, I stayed in my lane, I do what I can do, and I don't monitor the things I cannot affect. And if I'm invited in to affect something, okay, game on. I'm a yes.
When your methods work, what is actually changing between 2 people?
Wow. How many times are you going to wow me? I've even heard you have a reputation for it, but hello, every question? One of them would be that someone gets curious. So someone, even for just a moment, may see that there's something that they didn't see before. And, whoa, what's that? It happens to Kimberly in the Queen's Code. She sees something in Jack's eyes that she never looked for before. So she doesn't know how long it's been there. But it blows her mind. And it blows his mind for her to actually have seen him, because they've been adversarial for years. And so there's a curiosity, there's also a humility of, wow. And I ask women this, would you be willing to be wrong about who you thought men are your entire life? That you're like, that their mother, like mine, taught me who men are, and it's not true. would you be willing to be wrong? And also in this paradigm that I stand for, it excludes self-righteousness. And humans love to be self-righteous. So the willingness to just give up forever self-righteousness and to keep being curious and finding out what we don't know or that we didn't see that was completely in a blind spot, like what happened to me last summer about men and the ever-presence of death. What? But it's also fun, right? It's for people who want to be awake and discover and not set it and forget it, which is often what people want to do. Okay, I found the right person to be married to. Now I'm going to get on with my life. Really? It was men who taught me, if you're not paying attention, there is no relationship. It doesn't exist. And so, yeah, curiosity, compassion. I mean, it's shown up so many ways in the questions that have popped into my head, like, what if no one is misbehaving? And what if there's a good reason for that? And so along the lines of the things that have us lean in, what if there's a good reason for that? If there is, what might it be? Who are you really? What matters to you? What do you care about? All those things where we're leaning into each other. That's the biggest difference. We're not holding the other person off. We're not protecting ourselves. Only strong people can do that, or people who are willing to have faith in I'll be all right. Whether it's faith in God or faith in themselves. But do you want to be suspicious or faithful? It's one of the things that's been like my pet peeve over the years. Are women who identify with being devoutly Christian and quoting the Bible, who think that men are broken, that men are less than, and they're broken. Like, so were they made in God's image or not? Yeah, that inconsistency. And it's also been really interesting because I came at this from an anthropological point of view. And then as I was studying men and listening to men talk about women and then seeing how women are complement so well what's natural for women and what's natural for men, it got to the point where it's so beautiful, so elegant that I'm like, evolution doesn't work like that. Evolution's clunky. There's something else going on here. There's a perfection here that if we were looking for it, we would rejoice because it's there.
Conversely, when a relationship fails, who do you think is usually responsible? And are there signs before it's too late?
To be fair, I would say that ignorance, each of our ignorance, the assumption that men and women are supposed to be alike, the assumption that that you already know what I'm thinking, you already know what I need, that if I just say a word, that everything that word means to me, you will get it and you will provide it without me illuminating it. And it happens both ways. Men have a saying, there's no point in stating the obvious. And that causes so much mischief. Oh my gosh. There's a joke about an elderly couple that went to therapy, and the therapist asked, "Why are you here?" And the wife said, he hasn't told me he loved me since the day he asked me to marry him. And she was furious. And the husband was like, well, I would have told you if I changed my mind. It's like, to him, it was obvious. He came home every night. He voted with his feet. He kept showing up. Of course, he still loved her. There's so many things like that. Like a woman might want to spend more time. Hey, you want to watch a movie with me tonight? No. He thinks there's no point in stating the obvious. It's too late. I'm tired. I worked all day. You know I don't like movies in the first place. One time I asked Greg, honey, you want to go to the movies with me this afternoon? And he said, what are you going to see? I said, I'm going to see the new Spider-Man movie. And he goes, no. And then he walked back down the stairs. And then, I don't know how many minutes later, he came back up and he goes, did you just invite me to sit in a dark room and hold hands with you? I said, yeah, pretty much. And he goes, okay, yes. And I said, I'm still going to see Spider-Man. And he's like, okay. I said, you might want to get curious why your wife wants to see every Spider-Man movie. And he's like, because he accelerates by a radical change in direction. My husband is very much about acceleration. Cars, motorcycles. So, but men generally don't counteroffer, much more literal. You just answer the question. You don't realize it's an invitation and that she's taking a risk to make it. So it just gets a yes or no answer. And that can vary. Just that one simple thing can have her feel unloved, uncared for, that she's making all the effort, that he doesn't make any effort, and he thinks he's doing fine. There's just so much we don't see about what's going on with the other person. Like in our Understanding Men online course, we have a whole flip chart on showing respect. Because women are demonstrating disrespect like from dawn to dark, and they don't even know it. They have no idea the impact they're having. And because no one ever taught them, this is how men experience respect. Like to not interrupt. Wait for you to finish your sentence, thought, or idea instead of restate and give options and tell you what I think. I could go on and on, Tim. It is so much more normal for it to not work just because of what we don't know and what we don't see, and that we have conflicting instincts to start with. We approach safety and security in opposing ways. So, and then you had said something about signs, early warning signs, the absence of affection. There might be sex, but no affection. The absence of acknowledgement and appreciation. The absence of looking out for what the other person might need. Also, the absence of, or the presence of, unilateral, independent decision making, which is something part of the feminist movement, is women priding themselves on their independence. And I have a right to make these decisions. So what that we're married? It's my money, my time, my career. I remember when we moved to our house and I put everything away, Greg came in and said, which part is mine? was like, how about the garage? And then I realized how I'd done it. So I took his his car, mostly car models, 1/16th models, and I took all of my books that I'd arranged on bookshelves and I rearranged them so they became stages for his cars. And then finally it's like, okay, now this is our house.
If someone follows your advice and still ends up unhappy, how would you make sense of that, and what would you suggest they do next?
Oh boy. uh, okay, so happiness is a spiritual quality, and I tease that, the Declaration of Independence has, the right to the pursuit of happiness, which is different than catching it. And that the bottom line is if somebody's not committed to being happy, they won't be. And we call it unhappy on purpose. There are women who use unhappiness to manipulate. And they believe if they're not easily satisfied, if they're not easily made happy, then people will try harder and work harder, and there'll be better transactions. And it's brutal because the presence of happiness, it's a radioactive material that expands creativity, just thought, the depth or breadth of a person's ability to think, their levels of energy, their desire to be productive. Happiness has an enormous impact. And it's one of the places that Dennis Prager and I connected. He wrote a book, Happiness is a Serious Problem. And I'm like, yes, it is. And I committed to being happy decades ago. And my spiritual practice is contentment. Content means happy enough with what one is or does or has. And that is that's a conscious decision in the face of a sea of expectations and shoulds and oh, wouldn't it be great, and ideals, and even the feeling of wanting, people wanting and coveting something else that I believe is addictive. I practice the opposite of that. And it's one of the most important things that I would tell men to look for. Find out if she's committed to being happy, not just can you make her happy, she's committed to being happy, because about 95% of a woman being happy is up to her, maybe even more. Nothing a man can do will make us happy if we're too tired, if our feelings are hurt, if we haven't had enough alone time, for example, if we haven't had enough of his affection and his attention in a good way, which is why we teach men to find out what women's favorite questions are. How are you is going to get you a very long report of everyone I identify with. When you find out a woman's favorite questions, and they're different. Like, for me, if someone said, "What did you accomplish today?" That'd be a great question. I know a woman that her husband every day would say, "What did you accomplish today?" And it felt like a test. And she had to prove that she had done enough. She hated the question. Finding out whatever she's passionate about, if you ask questions about that, then it's a win-win, because men literally have testosterone, their testosterone levels in the bloodstream, the free testosterone, will increase in the presence of a woman's passion. And yet we ask questions that I didn't figure it out until last summer, that how are you? Actually, summer before last, how are you is a different question depending on if you're in a productive state of mind versus a connective state of mind. And women mostly seek safety and connection. So if someone says, how are you? Then I'm gonna tell you all about me. And hopefully you'll be interested and you'll connect with that. And then I got to see, oh, in a productive state of mind, how are you is a team captain checking in on what he's got to work with. How are you? Head's good, legs bad. Okay, don't try to run that play. How are you? Oh man, I'm pumped. I can't wait to do this. I'm hoping you'll let me. Right? Oh, okay, we could try something new there. It's usually just a short answer. How are you? Fine. What does that mean to a team captain? It means that what I normally can count on this person for, I can count on for. They're fine. Okay, we're good to go. Women have no idea that's what's being asked for. What is your status in relationship to what we're getting done today? What is your state? We don't know that. We think you're being connected and we're all excited. And then you guys are like 20 minutes later when you're still hearing the how are my children? How are my children's children? How's the move going with my mother? Yeah, I would question them being committed to being happy in the first place. For sure. I would start there, obviously. And often, and this is why I spend so many hours a month responding to my students who they're not merely consuming, right? They're implementing, they're courageous. And so I answer their questions when they're having implementation troubles. And often it's just small tweaks, something they left out, like a woman telling a man something she needs without asking for when would be a good time to tell him something that's important to her. And so she just tells him while he's driving. And she has no idea how focused he is or what he's focused on. And then she expects a good outcome. This is a really normal thing. Women they don't ask for a time to talk. Since they don't understand single focus, they don't ask for that focus on something that matters to them and when would be a good time that he could do that. And then another thing that women do that has it go haywire is they'll ask for time to talk and he may say, about what? She'll say something that'll have him not want to talk about the same old issue. Oh, time to talk. Never. Issues by definition aren't solvable. Why would I spend any more energy on that? But also when he says, how much time do you need? She'll often lie because then she thinks that then he'll make the time sooner if it will take less time, not knowing that when he gets there, he remembers how much time she said, and it's 90% used up and she still hasn't made the point yet. She still hasn't asked for what she said she was going to ask for. She hasn't done what she said she would do. Oh, the frustration. And she'll assume he doesn't care about what she needs, not that she just wasn't giving him what he needed. This is why when I interact with my students, I'm like, okay, what we're practicing here is supporting providers. I am a provider. If you give me a lot of background, context, situation, information, before you tell me what you want from me, I have no basket. I can't hold that information, and I'll be accused of not caring or forgetting. but I need a basket first. What do you want from me? And even men will start again. Well, I've been seeing my girlfriend for, yes, and what do you want from me? You'll have a chance to give me information later. What do you want from me? And they like have, it's counterinstinctual. They have to make themselves like reveal, like just get right to it. I want the answer to the question, why does she do this? Oh, thank you. Tell me a little bit more about the this, because there could be several answers to that. But both men and women, it's like I have to screw their feet into the ground to just tell me, what do you want from me? I want clarification about this. Awesome. What do you already understand about that? So all of these things cause probably a million problems a day. And it's, and also like there's what I can teach in general, but then you got to talk to the people in your life. What are your favorite questions? Or Tim, like I asked a group of men and women at Understanding Women, and I was talking about women's favorite questions. And then, the women were giving examples like, where have you traveled lately? Where are you traveling next? How are your grandchildren? How's it going building your house, right? They gave all these different examples. What did you learn today? That's a lot of women's favorite question. Anything new you've learned lately? What kind of movies are you watching or books are you reading? And then I asked the men, okay, men, so what are your favorite questions? And they had their arms crossed, which I had to figure out isn't closed down. It's just men's shoulders and arms are really heavy. So crossing them, actually supporting their shoulders. It's not closed down. It's not, I don't believe anything you're saying, which women assume that it is. And I waited and not a single man. There were like 40 men there. Nobody raised their hands. And I'm like, okay, somebody please tell me what's going on. And this one man just shook his head. I'm like, what? He goes, no questions. What? So your favorite questions are no questions? And all the men were nodding. No questions. And I'm like, okay, why no questions? I don't want to be interrogated. And the men are all nodding. Yeah, I don't want to be interrogated. How many questions makes an interrogation? One question makes an interrogation. Women don't know that. Women think questions express interest and caring. That's why they want men to ask them questions. But men, you guys say this thing, well, if he wants me to know, he'll tell me. You default to respecting privacy because that's what you want is privacy. Because the instinct is to conceal anything that can be used against you. This sets men up to fail with women. And it's one of the first things I told Dan when we were interacting with each other. Any question I ask you is fair game to ask me. It's safe. You won't ever get in trouble. Oh, cool. And asking me questions expresses interest. That's good. Oh, okay. I've learned how to not ask questions. How to instead, I call them playgrounds. I would be honored. I would be delighted. It would be a real treat for me if you would tell me more about any of these three things. You get to pick. It's just a playground. You just open the gate and, okay, the monkey bars, the slide, the sandbox. You get to pick what you want to talk about. So smart. I didn't even know how well I was doing it when we had our first panel of men. We gave them questions and they got on 3x5 cards and they got to pick the ones they wanted to respond to. And then as they took turns, they got to choose the one they wanted to respond to next. They didn't have to commit to the stack or anything. They were always at choice, always at choice, always at choice. Huge for humans to be at choice. Nobody wants to be dragged or compelled or pressured or interrogated. Oh my goodness. That question I could talk for a month about, Tim. I seriously could. Because everything I've discovered that works, there are circumstances under which it works, and caveats, and if then statements. And then I've had to explore other things that determine the individual if thens. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Michael Bruce's work. His book's called The Power of When, and it's about the 4 different possibilities on a particular gene in our chromosomes that determines the time, our chronotype, the time of day that our bodies naturally release the hormones that cause hunger and alertness and sex drive and sociability and focus and the inability to focus and an inability to socialize and being awake and being sleepy and then being asleep. And there's 4 different possibilities. And when we don't know it, we take it everything personally. And we don't know that how that person's functioning now, which is so different than 3 hours ago, probably isn't personal. It probably has to do with their hormones, the way their hormones are cycling in their body. And just as an example, I have a son and 2 sons-in-laws who are all what Dr. Michael Bruce would call wolves, meaning that their most productive hours of the day are between about 8 p.m. and 4 a.m. maybe. That's when they're awake and alert and creative. My newest son-in-law, the artist, that's when he creates art. He has a job during his least productive hours of the day on purpose. But if we don't know that, like Dan is a bear, which is about 50% of people, that means his truly social hours are about 10 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. Then he loves to socialize. He loves people. He loves listening and talking. Before that or after that, no questions. I had to figure out how to watch TV with him and enjoy his company and holding his hand and not ask any questions, especially during a hockey game. What was that? What was that? I got much better. So there's so much we take personally that isn't personal, and we're doomed because of it. We think you're that way with me because of how you feel about me.
Regarding that long-term commitment, why do you believe good relationships can be built, not found?
Okay, so because fundamentally there's no such thing as a relationship. And what people believe relationships are doesn't actually exist. So people tend to relate to relationships like they are a thing that develops and exists between 2 people, that it has inherent qualities, and that it's like a safe deposit box that will keep all the highs and all the lows. So the terrible things you'll have to keep overcoming forever, and the beautiful moments of love will be there to sustain you when you're being an ass and or not paying any attention at all. And I actually I looked it up in the dictionary, looked up relationship in the dictionary, which for most of human history, dictionaries are made by men, and they're what men mean by those words. And I tell women all the time, so what did he mean by this? Look it up in the dictionary. And I looked up relationship in the dictionary, expecting it to say something that grows between two people and blah, 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 blah. And it didn't say that. It said an instance of being related. And I spent hours taking that apart. It's not a moment of being related. It's an instance. An instant can last for many moments. And being related. So how are you being? And so we have a course called Lex, which is where I recommend everybody start, that distinguishes what I assert are the only three things we can control. We can't control relationships. We can't control other people. The only things we can control, I believe, are how are we being? What are we listening for? And what is the purpose of our speaking? What are we speaking to? What are we attempting to accomplish by our mouths moving and air and words coming out? And the most important is how are we being? Being is the universal language. And when someone's words are incongruent with how they're being's louder. We'll only give more power to the words when they're the words we're hoping to hear and hoping to hold them to account for, even when how they're being is incongruent. So I don't think we can find relationships because they don't exist. And I don't even think we can build them. We can build partnerships for sure. Partnerships, being on the same team, persons engaged in an enterprise sharing its profits and risks, right out of the dictionary. Partnerships can be built one agreement at a time, one demonstration of accountability, count-onability. Hold me to account for this. That you holding me to account for what I just promised you would be a sign of respect, that you know who I am. And we make the agreements, we clean them up, we recreate them, we honor them, we change them when they don't fit anymore. We call it deal making, which we describe as values plus circumstances. So how do your values and the other person's values, how do they apply in this circumstance? And that's how we can shape those instances of being related, those moments and times in our lives. How are we going to be? And then how do we support each other in getting what they need to be who we're committed to being? And then there's ways of listening, like when I was committed to being compassionate with my mother after 10 years of not talking to her voluntarily, and a good probably 5 years of her number being blocked on my phone. And now it was time to engage with her, to take the burden off the rest of my family. And I sat myself down with myself to figure out, okay, what will make the biggest difference? Compassion would make the biggest difference. Okay, so what question could I be listening to her with? What could I be paying attention to that would help me be compassionate? And so the question I picked was, what's real for her? And this was in direct opposition to, probably since I was maybe 20-something years old, the question I normally had at the top of my mind listening to her was, what's she lying about now? Or, is this true? Is this true? Is this an exaggeration? That's how I listened to her all the time. And now with dementia and memory that's just wild, what's real for her, what's real for her, what's real for her. It has me have compassion, and it keeps me from correcting her, which scares the bejesus out of her to be corrected. Because she knows she can't trust her mind. And it just the fear that arises. And if I can just keep listening, what's real for her, what's real for her, is there any danger in that? Is there anything that needs to be adjusted to keep her safe? No, it's all fine. It's all fine that she thinks her big sister comes home late and leaves early every morning, even though they haven't lived together since my mom was 16 years old. There's no harm in her thinking it. So I don't correct her. Oh, okay. So our belief in relationships and that they are these safe deposits that hold all the wounds and hold all the love, it has us be ineffective. It has everybody be bad at them because we're not interacting with reality. And the reality is how we're the futures we envision with each other, the possibilities and or the lack of possibilities, they aren't based on the past. How are we being now and now and now? And honestly, I think being present is the hardest thing for human beings to be.
You talk about purpose and realm. I have found a lot of stability in my own life through faith in Jesus, and I'm always interested how others think about it. How does faith, in whatever form it takes for you, shape how you see relationships?
My faith tends not to fall into easy description. I have a profound relatedness to Jesus, and I access it a lot. Let me hear you more clearly. Let me respond more quickly. Let me be more like you. It's my way of relating to Jesus. And but I also have an absolute certainty that I live in a benevolent universe. That even with everything going on, the universe is for us. And I see men. I see men in the universe that it's for us, but it needs more information to know exactly how to have that show up. And so we have to be clearer. And I honestly, it's been so long now since my prayer, whether it was having an interview or going up on a stage in front of 1,000 people, for decades now, even before I started teaching about men and women, has been, thank you, God, for having me be who I need to be to get your work done today, to get your work done tonight, to get your work done now. And then there's a kind of surrender in it. And I find myself able to do and be things that are not consistent with my identity at any point in my life. I think we talked about it last time, about how I get to live in a state of grace because I keep saying yes. I don't struggle. I keep saying yes to what I'm directed to do. And I get directed. I literally hear the words and get told what to do. And I'll check, right? Like, is this that? Yep. Okay, I'm off and running. And I like the Queen's Code, for example, after it was written and the publishing rights had already been bought by an imprint of Random House, and I turned it in, and they wanted me to cut 35 to 40% of it. But I channeled it. I had no right to cut out parts of this creation. So I had an interesting clause that isn't, you would know this, most authors don't have any right to name their book. And there's a clause in the contract that I had to agree to the name of the book. And what they wanted to name it was terrible. What men really, 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 really want from women. That's what they wanted to name the Queen's Code. After I cut 40% of it. So, yeah, exactly. So I took the book back. I gave them their money back. And then on my 50th birthday, I was making a list. I was on a plane flying home from Italy, and I made a list. And the second thing on the list was find the best possible way to publish the Frog Farmer book for the widest possible audience. And I finished writing the list, and then when I was done, there were other really cool things on there. And when I was done, I went back and read that one, and then this thing came out of the bulkhead. We were sitting in the bulkhead, and this whole plan for how to publish the Queen's Code scrolled down like the beginning of a Star Wars movie. Just this whole way to do it, a week at a time on the internet, with book clubs and communities and videos and ways for people to interact with me. And it took 2 years and about $300,000 that we didn't have to execute the plan. And within 3 weeks of publishing the book the way I was told to publish it, it was in 70 countries. What the heck? But it was exactly what I asked.
Before we close, I always ask our guests to brag about their family for a minute. Please, go ahead, Alison.
For 1 minute, starting now? My children. So 3 in their 30s. I have 30, almost 33, and almost 38. And what I claim is I didn't squish them too much. They were born astonishing, and especially after I gave up emasculating men so my son could thrive, they blow my minds. And they're all so different. And with each one of them, there came a point where I had a conversation with them because of what they were up to with their siblings. It was first to my son, do you want to be a good brother or bad? Do you want to be a good big brother or a bad big brother? And then the middle daughter, then it happened. And then my youngest daughter, it all happened. And they just given the choice. This is going to last your whole life, how you choose to relate to each other. So what's it going to be? And Jeff asked, when he made up his mind, he said, so how do I be a good big brother? And then his sisters asked the same questions later on. And they have literally invented, after choosing how they were going to relate to each other instead of competing, they were going to support each other and connect with each other. And they're all over the place, and they travel long distances to be with each other, even when it's not a family gathering. And it, like the wedding last month, my son came from Mexico to be there. And I'm going to stop because I know it's past a minute, because I've trained a lot of people to say what they need to say in 2 minutes. So I'm going to stop. But I adore them, and I'm in awe of them. And I'm always stunned when they say they learned something from me, or I got that from you, Mom. Really?
Thinking about the future, I'm curious about us writing a book together.
With me? What an honor.
What would it be about?
Well, I haven't read any of your books. I know there's lots of them. Honestly, the first thing that came to mind, and this may sound weird, but I told you before, I've spent a lot of time studying men through sports and watching football to me, a great game of football is getting to witness honorable warriors. So these warriors battling it out with rules. And some are more or less honorable. But to me, all of life and all of who men are show up in great games, in great engagements, if you will. And football is definitely would be football, soccer, and hockey. Those are probably the basketball. It's a whole other thing. But I know there are a lot of sports people who've written things about the life lessons of sport, but there are so many man lessons in sports and what it means to be a man and what men are focused on and what team means. So that was what came to mind. So I'm telling you the truth, but I would want to know what you would have it be about.
My gut reaction when if you asked me what it was about, which you're not, I'm in the cheap seats.
No,
My
I
first,
want to know.
I said I was thinking something along the lines of saying less but meaning more, right? Because I think part of the things that could tie to relationships and to my dad typing things with his eyes, and
Yes.
then and then when you brought up sports, I thought you were going to say the things you can learn about relationships through sports, because that's something that you hear. For me, I've heard so many life lessons you can learn through sports, but there's also things like commitment and working through challenges and stuff like that.
Mhm.
That I thought that's where you were going to go with it when you started talking about the sports. But
Well, so one of the things that women are confounded by about men is competition and being competitive and the need to win. And they think it's a way that men are broken. And so it's one of the first things I stuck my face in, this business of winning and paying attention to, like, what if there's a good reason for a need to win? And just from a survival perspective, you spend a lot of time losing, you die. And you spend a lot of time engaging in things that you can't win at, you die. And watching men, if men say, I can't win, that would be another sign of the demise of a so-called relationship. I can't win. But it doesn't matter what I do, I can't win. Because when a man can't see a way to win, his instincts will shut down spending any energy on that. He can't do it. And so anytime anything a man is engaged in, you guys have this extraordinary ability, because you need to win, you literally define winning. So I took this to heart, learning to play pickleball. Mostly you would on the other side of the net from Dan, who has been a really good tennis player most of his life. I can play tennis probably if my life depended on it. And so I asked him, would he go easy on me? And he said, I can't. And I waited, thankfully. And he said, if I dumb down my game to make it easier on you, I won't be playing my game and I'll lose my game. And I got it. I was like, okay, so you do your game, you give me what you got, and if I can return it, that'll be a victory. If I can return your shots, that'll be a victory. And he has balls that land and spin to the left or right. They don't keep coming after the bounce. They go someplace else entirely. But it's been such a challenge for him to be as good as he is and me be such a newbie. And he beat me 11-2. He beat me 11-1, then 11-2, and then 11-4. That was huge. To get 4 points off of him. Well, women don't know to look at what is he focused on and how is he competing? What's the game he's playing? Greg would always play the game, have Annie, that's what Olivia went by when she was a little girl, have Annie have fun. So he never tried to win at the game they were playing. He was winning, have Annie have fun. It's fascinating. It's fascinating how much competition, and if we get 1 point off them, and the belief in oneself. I was watching Touchback last night. Fascinating movie, Touchback. Which did not go where I thought it was going to go. A new employee of ours recommended it. Anyhow, so much of a man believing he can win with the women he cares about has everything to do with his outlook on his life and it being worth living. And so there's so much to do to stop setting men up to lose, set each other up to win. Tim, it could just really be a fun conversation, all the possibilities of what you brought up. Now, and I'm just keeping at bay the how of it. No, figure out the what first, and then you can figure out the how. But the how, do we do that? Because I don't write books. I type them when they're ready to come through.
Now on to our final word segment, where we ask our guests a few rapid-fire questions. What was the happiest moment in your life?
I'm happy on principle. I had so many moments of ecstasy in my life. The happiest moment? I'm sorry, I can't. There's a flood. There's a flood of them. There's such an abundance.
What is the biggest adversity you've faced?
Wow. I would say my own belief in harm. Like that we can be permanently harmed, we're damaged, there's things we'll never get over, we'll be affected by that for the rest of our lives. That's a common thing. And to overcome that and stand in, you cannot damage me. Doesn't matter what you do or you say. I might be bruised, I might be battered. I will recover, and I will never be recognized by my wounds.
What are you most excited about?
I'm excited about how unknown it is. I kind of thought at 65 years old I'd be winding down and, settling down, and that I'd know how everything was going to go. And I literally, at this point, I don't know where I will be living. I know, like, generally where I'm going to be, somewhere near Sandpoint, Idaho. But I don't know the rest of it. And I don't know when. And I don't know where my work is going to go, which I haven't known forever. But now I know that I don't know, because it's most everything that's happened in the last 20 years, I couldn't ever imagine. And yeah, that one of the happiest moments of my life was when I was invited to contribute to people who've spent their lives on behalf of civil rights for everybody. Not just in this country, but everywhere. That was one of the happiest moments. I never thought I'd be invited to do that. I've been wound up about prejudice and discrimination since I was a little girl, and to be invited to contribute to, leaders in that field, to contribute my work to leaders in that field, oh my gosh. And now, like I was sharing, to be able to be invited to contribute my work to people committed to the end of hunger, unthinkable.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Question everything that you think you know, everything that you think is true, everything you think you're right about. Um, uh, discover the damage of your own arrogance much sooner, Allison. Don't wait till you're like 40 to figure out walking around I know and you don't will never work very well.
Do you have any book recommendations for us or for the listeners?
Well, there's, of course, the only 3 books that I've actually published. Everything else is audio recording. So, Making Sense of Men. So freeing. Men should read it too. You'll find out why you act till you do. Keys of the Kingdom, which is the first channeled work. The Queen's Code, which is, it's actually doing what it's supposed to do. Thank goodness. The King's Code, which might be out in 2027. Dr. Bruce's, definitely Dr. Bruce's, because I'm for anything that helps us be more honoring of ourselves and then others. So the power of when is definitely in there. Oh, and last but not least would be Wolf's Message by Suzanne Giesemann.
The name of our podcast is Nothing Left Unsaid. Do you have anything you want to say?
Trust that you are loved.
All right. So before we let you go,
You didn't expect it to be so short, did you?
no, I did not. Before we let you go, the last question I ask every guest at the end of our podcast, I always ask, you got to know us a little bit. You know about the show, what we talk about, what we like to talk about, all that. Who are a couple people that you know personally you think we should try to have on as future guests?
Well, the first person that comes to mind is Dene Sebastiana. Dene, Dene Maria Sebastiana. He wrote a memoir called Fierce and Tender, Healing the Deep Masculine in Men and Women. So he is a sage. He's been a integral part of men's work for probably 40 years. I think he's 78 now. Yeah, that would be really interesting. His book is really hard to be with because of it's a memoir and what he experienced, but it's definitely part of my research for the King's Code.
Alison, thank you for joining us. Your work challenges how people think about responsibility, communication, and what actually drives connection between men and women. Whether people agree or disagree, these are questions that shape real lives and real relationships. We appreciate your time and your willingness to engage them directly. May God bless you and your family.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
It's been an honor.
Yeah. All right, we'll talk soon. We'll do a part 3.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Tim, you come up with more questions. We'll come up with more time.
Thank you, Alison.
Mwah.